Zach Wilson right here. Boom. So how are we feeling Zach played this past week? Like, what are your thoughts on his specific performance?
Yeah, so of another frustrating week on Jets Twitter and Jets Internet, because I had people tell me in my comments that Zach Wilson was, quote, balling out before the interception. If that's what the definition of balling out is, I like, can we save balling out for something like truly special? I will take played mostly fine, was pretty good, was better than I expected,
I said
serviceable.
solid, and I was like, oops, that was probably the wrong word.
Yeah, solid might even be too far. But like he was I think my favorite is mostly fine. But that somehow gets blown up to balling out before the interception. The thing with Zach is there was always every single week there's going to be 3 throws or 3 plays where you go, holy shit, there are only so many guys who could do that. But then the rest of it, that's unbelievable. That was an awesome play. But there were 35 other throws in that game, and there were other mistakes. The intentional grounding was really bad. If you take a sack, he was stepping up in the pocket. It would have only been like a 2 or 3 yard loss. That doesn't take you out of that drive. The interception was telegraphed where it was going. I've gotten a lot of pushback on that as well, saying that Allen Lazard has to come back to the ball a little bit more.
It's because Bart Scott said that on the postgame. That was the drive home. It's like, there's also Gibson open on the left. There's, Carter, whoever. No, it wasn't Carter. It had to be Brees or Cook on the right-hand side. But yeah, it's like stupid.
Yeah, but I was going to say, how about Rodgers today saying the ball should not have been going there in the first place, or Dan Orlovsky doing his thing, his breakdown on Twitter. And I don't always agree with Dan Orlovsky. And then I had the people saying, well, Dan Orlovsky also said Zach was good the last 2 weeks, so you must agree with that. I'm like, no, I don't actually. He is part of the issue. He is not the only problem. I'm not going to sit here and tell you the only reason the offense stinks is because of Zach Wilson. That's not true. The play calling isn't good. The offensive line isn't always consistent, although against this game against the Raiders, I thought offensive line was pretty good. There's self-inflicted wounds with penalties. There's drops. There's a lot. But the quarterback has to have some of the blame if they don't score a touchdown in 3 games. You have to have some blame for that.
Oh, yeah, let alone like the red zone issues. I mean, it's a consistent problem. And how much of the mental lapses that we're blaming on coaching right now is there, some aspect of guys' minds that feel they have to go that extra 5%, that extra 10% in order to overcome some of the shortcomings of the offense in general. Maybe it's someone like, okay, I got to beat this edge rusher right now. Oh, there's a false start by mistake. Or, there's a lot that goes into it, and it's receivers dropping balls. It's the coaching to me since the bye week has been the glaring issue, more so than Zach. Like I give Zach a little bit of a pass for the Giants game. Miserable conditions. I wouldn't really want him throwing in those kind of conditions anyway. And then going up against the Chargers, we really thought we were going to see something special there. There was a lot of issues offensive line, but I definitely put a lot more blame on Zach for the Charger game than I do some of the other games. Even though like he gave up the critical interception at the end of this game, I thought we never had a shot in the Charger game from basically the first whistle.
Yeah, because to me, the Chargers game was definitely worse because he was holding on to the ball for so long, and the 8 sacks. The offensive line wasn't good against the Chargers. This is not me giving a pass to the offensive line, but there were 8 sacks. Can we sit here and say that the offensive line was responsible for all 8 of those sacks? I don't think so. Maybe half, maybe a 4-and-4 split, 4 on the line, which isn't good, but 4 on the quarterback. And also he lost 2 fumbles, which gave them the ball on the 50 and then the 2-yard line. So you gifted them.
And he took a sack that knocked us out of field goal range. That's 17 points that was like directly attributed because of Zach mistakes.
Right. So I agree. I think the Chargers game was actually worse than the Raiders one, but people love talking about how he's cut down on interceptions, which he has, and I think you have to give him some credit for that. But fumbles lost also counts as turnovers. He has 11 turnovers in 9 games. That's still a lot.
Yeah, and I would much rather see an interception that's a punt than a fumble that's going the other way 48 yards or, puts them in, on our side of the 50 immediately. Like, I don't want to see the interception we saw this past week, but you have to be able to push the ball further down the field, because that's part of our issue is they can, load 10 guys in the box or 12 guys in the box, whatever you want to do, fucking stop Breece Hall, just say, okay, we're going to double Garrett, we're going to prevent Breece Hall from running the ball, and then, Zach, you just got to figure it out. And we know your first look's always going to be Garrett, so I don't know. It's just it's really frustrating to watch, and I think there's a lot of blame to go around, but Zach, God, I don't know. Do you think there's any truth to like the Jets not bringing in a veteran at the beginning of the year because Rodgers said he wanted to come back this year?
I don't know. I don't know if I put stock into that. I think it's either Joe Douglas trying to be like, hey, like I used the second overall pick on this guy, we're gonna figure out a way to make it work, or maybe Woody Johnson who's trying to force it. I don't think it's a full Robert Saleh thing, but it's something we've talked a lot about on this show, and I think last week in particular, but the Jets really had 3 opportunities to add a veteran quarterback to be a backup, and they never did. Last offseason, the offseason in March, when Rodgers went down in week 1, the trade deadline, and they passed every time. I think that was a mistake, but I don't think it's Rodgers saying, hey, I want Zach to be the backup, or hey, you can't, give up a day 3 pick to get Jacoby Brissett in here for a month. Like, I don't know. I don't think he would say something like that.
Yeah, no, I don't get this to be on Saleh necessarily. I think it's, the wording that was said when they were rolling with Zach was he provides the highest upside. I think he also provides one of the lower floors. I don't think Boyle's floor is very high, but I think Trevor Siemian's is. I think Siemian's floor is higher than Zach's floor. Ceiling-wise, definitely not as high, but it might be a similar situation to last year where you had Joe Flacco backing up Zach Wilson, and then Mike White goes from third quarterback up to first quarterback. Maybe there's a situation where Siemian goes from practice squad to starter at some point, maybe, if they were to do it. I mean, I get this feeling that we are just seeing Zach the rest of the way out until we get Rodgers back, or we don't get Rodgers back and it's still Zach the rest of the way out.
I don't understand, and this is another thing we've talked about a lot, but I don't understand their refusal to elevate Trevor Siemian. Even if Trevor Siemian doesn't look as good as what he maybe was as the Saints backup 2 years ago, or what he was in Denver, I don't know how he could possibly be worse than Tim Boyle. From what we've seen from Tim Boyle in the regular season, what we saw from him in the preseason, like everything. And I'm not saying like Trevor Siemian's this great quarterback and he's this like perfect answer, but we've seen him start a bunch of games. He has 30 starts in his career, while Boyle has what, a handful? I don't get that one at all. And I think maybe that's another move when they talk about personnel that they'll look to change.
Yeah, and I'll go one further. I don't even care if Siemian's starter. I want him to be elevated to number 2 at the very least, because Zach had his best game of his career as soon as we signed Trevor Siemian. We signed Trevor Siemian the end of September. October 1st, we go against the Chiefs. Zach balls out. If you elevate Siemian to number 2, maybe Zach feels a little bit of pressure. There's a little bit of accountability there. The rest of the team at least is, understanding like, okay, hey, they're doing something with the quarterback situation. It's not just being stagnant all the time. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to watch. And I think Jet fans and Jet players deserve more than what we're currently getting out of them.